Uh, Today's the first full day of Passover, and the last couple of days, I've been trying to kind of suss out my thinking on what the Haggadah means, what the Passover story means in 2026, at a moment when the genocide in Gaza, a genocide being perpetrated by the state of Israel, um, continues despite the supposed truce that's in place or ceasefire that's in place. What it means when Israel, along with the United States, is waging a war of aggression in Iran and Lebanon. What are we to take from the Passover story? One point I think that we have to look at is, and this responds to a piece that I found online, that attempts to elide the notion that there is diversity of opinion among Jews in the United States and around the globe on the question of Israel. The piece essentially argues that we are kind of false or we're foul, faux Jews, like sort of like Jews in name only. That our efforts to hold our brethren to the kind of ethical and moral uh, thresholds that we believe we were raised with um, is, um, is a purely political and in the mind of this writer is abjectly sinister approach. It's an unfortunate way of framing this, I think, because um, from an argumentative standpoint, it's designed to kind of eliminate opposition, to make criticism point um, of his point impossible, right? If I'm already if my criticism automatically is seen as disingenuous, then my criticism matters not at all, as far as this person argues. So, but what do we know? The assumption that this writer is making is that the Passover story is an overtly of Zionist tale, and I don't think that's the case. I think there are Zionist elements in it, but I think ultimately it's a story of redemption from slavery. And it is a story of reclamation, a reclaiming of one's freedom from um, oppression. And I think that if we can't, we cannot treat the Passover story and in purely Jewish terms. I think in 2026, when there is an ongoing genocide in Gaza, when Israel is perpetrating an ongoing genocide in Gaza, even as it pretends to uphold a ceasefire that was agreed to. And when Israel, in conjunction with the United States, is bombing um, Iran, with Trump saying that his plan is to bomb them back to the Stone Age, when he closes with the line, "where they belong." That is so antithetical to what we should be believing in as human beings, let alone as Jews. And when Israel is also using the assault on Iran as cover for its expansionist efforts in southern Lebanon. What we're witnessing is a Jewish state, a supposedly Jewish state, which again is something I think that we all should be concerned. We should all be critical of, right? But we were watching as a nation uses its military power, and it is among the most powerful militaries in the world, um, to um, to impose its will on those who are weaker, to impose its designs on the region, to attempt to um, create, to attempt to create new facts on the ground, to redraw reality in the Middle East so that it fits a Jewish exceptionalism, a sense of greater Israel, a sense of um, you know, so that its power, essentially to expand its power and expand its control over land. Um, how what we're witnessing, I think, in the Middle East is Israelis, the Israeli government, with the with the Israeli public really behind this, um, functioning as if they were they are the pharaohs of the story now. And the folks who live in Gaza, the folks who live in the West Bank, the folks who are under siege, um, have become the Israelites of the story, the Seder story. And I don't think that we can get away from that. I don't think we can ignore that as what we think is what's happening over there. So we're going to sit. Many of us are going to sit at a Passover Seder at some point. We're going to, you know, tell the story of our Jewish freedom from slavery in Egypt. We're going to discuss how God interceded on behalf of the Jews and imposed penalties upon enemies, the enslavers. How God interceded using Moses um, to you know, this to to part the Red Sea, and so on and so on. And we are going to pretend that that gives us certain license and gives Israel certain license to act in certain ways, and um, that ends up making all of us complicit. I think that what we haven't talked enough about overall is the way that Israel's war in Gaza and Israel's participation in the war in Iran and Israel's efforts to kind of remake the Middle East in its own image for its own purposes is creating additional levels of anti-Semitism out there. Um, but I think that's for another discussion. What I want to I think say here to close is that the way I read the Haggadah, the story that is told in the Haggadah, it is one of finding freedom, of, of casting off slavery, of it's a story of justice, but it's a story of social justice. It's a story of a story in which humanity is valued above militarism. It is the it is not the Israelis, the Israelites. Again, we should make that distinction. It's not the Israelites who are defeating the Egyptian, the Pharaoh and the Egyptian army. It's God who intercedes on behalf of the Israelites, on behalf of humanity. And yeah, that's to me, that's the lesson. And I think that we as Jews need to lean into that lesson and really understand that that it's not just about us. and that if we really want to heed that lesson, I'm repeating myself now over and over again, heed that lesson, we would make amends, and we would rebuild Gaza, and we would find a way to, at a minimum, to share the land with people who we forcibly removed.